Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in New York. The Republican convention is just days away now, and the party's nominee is running the most unpredictable, some would say confounding campaign in modern times. The Democratic nominee is facing a major trust deficit. Only 37% of voters consider her trustworthy. And on top of that, the country seems polarized on issues of race and policing. Donald Trump says he is a law and order candidate. Hillary Clinton says America needs more love and kindness. Whose vision will prevail this November? With me for the full hour, comedian Bill Maher. He's the host of Real Time, Friday nights on HBO. He's also hosting a series of 4 special episodes, all live during the Republican and Democratic conventions. Those will air Wednesday and Thursday nights. Bill, thank you.
Great to be here.
And there's nothing like having you here because I can ask you the toughest question.
Please
if you
do.
had to explain this to somebody you knew living overseas, what would you explain is going on in this country on racial issues right now? This tenseness.
Well, it depends on what country the person who I was talking to was from. Some countries don't have a racial problem like we do because they don't have a history of slavery like we do. We never really got race right in this country. It's the original sin of this country. It's a fault line that we've tried to cover up. Every time something racial happens, people act surprised. I just watched that recent documentary on O.J. Simpson, and it's hard to believe that back then every white person in America was like, well, of course he's guilty. And no jury could ever find him anything but guilty. And they were shocked when a jury did not.
I was too. I was on the air.
We were all shocked. Okay, and black folks were all applauding. Not because I think that they thought he was really that innocent, but because for once, for one time, a black guy beat the system after the system had beaten black folks so many times. So that's the beginning of it. Now, when it comes to the police, look, there's never any excuse for what happened. For shooting a policeman, of course, we all condemn that. There's no and ifs or buts. I don't condone it, but I do understand it. We have
You understand that guy?
Well, I understand the motivation, yes. I mean, how many videos can you see? How many years can go by when this is going on, when black people are brutally assaulted? I mean, the last one, guy was just right on the ground, and he put a slug in him. I'm surprised, somebody did not fire back sooner.
Do you know, well, what do you think these are motives? I think the motives differs in every case, but you're the guest tonight. What do you think causes all this? I see the common nature. White police officer kills black person, apparently without justification. What else is going on? Is it prejudice?
Well, I interviewed a policeman once on my old show, and he said, when I worked in the black neighborhood, I hated all black people. When I worked in the Latino neighborhood, I hated all Latino people. And when I worked here in the San Fernando Valley, I hated the white people. I mean, when you're a policeman, you do basically come up against not the good people. That's what you're dealing with. That's your job.
I think that's so true.
You're a policeman. You know, you deal with criminals. So there is some of that. There is also something very wrong with police culture. Now, once again, we're not indicting all the police. And certainly without the police, this country would look like that movie, The Purge. Yeah. Every night.
You know, I was a Capitol policeman for a while. It's not really dangerous work. I was guarding the Capitol building. But one thing they taught us in the short training we had was that when you go to approach a stopped car for a traffic violation, it could be tail light, whatever, you never stand directly next to the driver's seat. You don't stand like right there at the window because you could get plugged right in the stomach.
Right.
So you always approach from the back door and go in sideways. The cop's always looking in sideways. So police are basically worried they stop anybody about who's in that car.
Yes, of course they are.
That may explain some of this, trigger happy or whatever it is.
But it is a dangerous job. I mean, by the way, there are statistics on this, how dangerous it is. I don't think it actually cracks the top 10 as far as how many deaths. I think cab drivers are killed more than policemen. I think electricians, fishermen. This is not to say it's not a dangerous job, but it is a job you signed up for if you're a policeman. You're not conscripted into it. So the answer when you feel nervous about your life can't be just right away to shoot, which seems like it happens way too much. Again, is it most cops? Probably not, but it's way too many. It gets on film a lot.
That's what I want to ask about. When you see these guys, like the guy running across a field 100 yards away from a guy, and he just plugs him from behind. That's not self-defense. That's not nervousness.
It's cowardice.
Are we missing something in the tape sometimes?
I don't think you're missing anything in that tape. I don't think we were missing much in the Rodney King tape. I mean, this goes back all the way to that. I mean, no matter what Rodney King was doing, once you have him on the ground and you have 6 guys just wailing him on him with batons, that cannot be justified. Again,
or the chokehold guy selling Lucy cigarettes.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a job you volunteered for. So when it says protect and serve on the side of the card, that's to protect and serve us, not you.
Okay.
We're not protecting you. You have to understand that, yeah, there is an element of danger in this job, and you have to accept that if you want to do it. And by the way, I think most policemen like their job.
Yeah.
Yes, there's danger in it, and there's also a lot of perks. You know?
Anyway, this weekend, Donald Trump tweeted, look what's happening in our country under the weak leadership of Obama and people like crooked Hillary Clinton. We are a divided nation. Do you think the President of the United States at any given time has an influence on these kinds of very immediate situations of black and white? Do you think the President's leadership does anything to forestall this kind of tragedy?
I think I don't think he can forestall them, but I do think this president is awfully good about talking about them and about racial issues. You know, there are lots of black folks on one side who say he doesn't do it enough. You know, people like Cornel West. Even Michael Eric Dyson, I know, sometimes says...
I know, I hear from both of them,
and of course, we know what the right wing thinks of him, is that perhaps he's an illegitimate president just because he is black. So he's got...
But I think I know why he's doing it. I think he's really trying to be... I'm not saying not black, of course that's stupid, but to be someone who is seen as an overall leader, and he doesn't want to become sectarian.
It's almost an impossible position that he's put himself, that he is in. But as much as a president can calm the nation, he is calm. All these people who think Donald Trump is going to be great for their pocketbook because he's rich, he's going to be horrible for their pocketbook because he's the opposite of calm.
He says
he's going to be good. The stock market hates nothing more than volatility, and he is walking volatility. They all pretend that they don't like Obama because he's a Democrat and a socialist and this and that. He was great for the stock market because he's calm, and they love calm. And Trump is going to be horrible for them.
You know the old line, if you want to live like a Republican, vote like a Democrat.
Right. I don't, but that's great. I'll remember
Anyway, Donald Trump called himself the law and order candidate this week. Let's watch him.
Too many Americans are trapped in fear, violence, and poverty. We must maintain law and order at the highest level, or we will cease to have a country. 100%. We will cease to have a country. I am the law and order candidate.
That's what Nixon said.
Yeah, I knew.
68. I mean,
what do you think he's taking sides there?
Well, first of all, it's a very fact-free assessment of what's going on in this country. Actually, crime has been down the last 10, 20 years. That's not what it looks like on the evening news.
But you can feel it in New York City.
When it bleeds, it leads. You can feel what?
The crime is way down from what it used to be.
Of course, right. But that's not what the media likes. They like sensationalism. So people think things are actually worse. Things are actually probably better. And statistically, they are shown to be better. But that's not how you win votes. And that's not, I mean, Trump can only win by scaring people.
But if you got kids like I do living up in New York, you feel a lot better about this city than you would have 30, 40 years ago.
Absolutely. Of course. I lived here in the late 70s and the early 80s. It was ridiculous.
Giuliani says that the Black Lives Matter movement is inherently racist. He says black parents should teach their kids to respect the police.
Oh, God. Really?
Yeah.
He really said that?
Yeah.
Well, Republicans wonder why they don't get the votes of minorities when they make comments like that. Black Lives Matter is not inherently racist. It is exactly what it is. Black lives should matter, and when we see them being gunned down in the street when they're not deserving of that, is it not obvious that some movement had to rise up to protest against that?
Well, to make your point, Newt Gingrich, who's on his best behavior, he said it's more dangerous to be black in America, not just because of the crime on the street, but because of the police. He put it together, both threats to black youth.
You know.
So what do you think he's up to?
Well, he's up to wanting to be vice president, but I don't think that's going to happen. But these Republicans who are so alarmed by Donald Trump, and many of them are appalled, even though they're sort of getting behind him, what did they think was going to happen? I mean, they spent all these decades pursuing a strategy of race baiting, anti-intellectualism, and conspiracy theories. And then when a Donald Trump emerges, They're surprised about it? They shouldn't be surprised. I mean, the one different thing about Donald Trump is his temperament. Certainly we've had people who have followed that strategy before in the Republican Party. We've never had anybody with this kind of temperament. If he became president, it would just be government by snit. Every day it would be about tweeting and getting even with people who didn't do exactly what he wanted.
Do you think his call that Obama was somehow the product of a strange personal conspiracy by his mother, that she was a white American woman from Kansas and she went over to Kenya to have a baby and she married an African guy who wasn't exactly the best stand-up guy. He wasn't going to be around very long. And then she somehow got it posted in the Honolulu newspapers that her baby was born then. Then she gave him the name Hussein Obama, Barack Hussein, and he's, you know, he's a mixed race kid, and did all this so he'd be president in 35 years. I mean, why did he say that? It can't be anybody believes it.
Of course not. This is why he sued me, because this is the issue that I was making fun of him about.
Well, it's incredible if you talk it through.
Of course it is. And he is, I mean, that is racism. I know they hate to hear. That's the one thing they hate to hear. And I would never say that all Republicans are racist. But if you are a racist and you're looking for a political party, this is the obvious choice.
This is the mousetrap, at least. I mean,
right.
Yeah, here, eat this cheese.
But it's not just Trump. I mean, if you watch the Republican debates, they all follow this script of restore America. I want my country back. Yeah. It's subtle, but it's not even that subtle. They talk about Obama and his presidency as if it just never even existed. To me, there's something racist there. They say things like, we got to put America back to work. Yeah, did that. That actually happened. We put America back. We got to rebuild our depleted military. We didn't deplete the military. It went up under Obama like it went up under every president.
You know, Mike, my explanation for birtherism, if there is one, is that he's playing to people who want to believe that somehow you can put an asterisk next to Obama.
Exactly.
And he wasn't really, when you show that little book of color pictures of presidents to the kids, when they're first learning about civics, and you go through all the pictures from John Adams all the way through, and William Henry Harrison, and they all look white. And then you get to this guy. They want to be able to say, like, you know, like...
No, they just don't like the idea of a black family eating off the White House china. They can couch it any way they want, but it just did not go down well with them. And this is their answer to that.
He really wasn't president.
Really wasn't president. And of course, they were hoping that he would be a terrible failure, because then it would never happen again. Bush, to his credit, George W. Bush, on Obama's first day in office, stood there with him and said, we want you to succeed. That was not the attitude of most Republicans. And I'm sure that they hated the fact that history will judge this presidency as having succeeded.
Yeah, I think he's in the top couple tiers, at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, Bill Maher's coming right back. We're going to talk about his wild presidential race going on right now, and not his, but this, and a much more about the rise of Donald Trump. More with Bill Maher after this.